Thank you for being here. I'm Randall Rothenberg. I'm the president and CEO of the IAB. The best thing I can tell you today is you're not going to have anything of me. You're going to have a lot of this, which is really great. I want to just start by thanking our sponsors for the day and also our host, New York Public Radio. They give me a bunch of notes, so I say, make sure I say this and this and that. But I was actually thinking that what I wanted to say is I encounter the new world of digital audio every morning of the week when I get up around 7 a.m. and I go, Alexa, play me the Jonathan channel. And my Amazon Echo says, playing the Jonathan channel on iHeartRadio. And I think this is amazing because it's playing Jonathan Schwartz, who I began listening to in a couple of years ago when he was on WNEW FM, who's produced here in this space. Actually, is he here in this space? So he's actually here in this space on WNYC, distributed over a whole bunch of distributors, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and others, listening on a device made by a Seattle company that's better known for shopping. And then I'll move into the next room where I'll listen to it on my, my Bose SoundTouch. And I'm thinking, my God, what have we done? And what we've done is something that I remember from the first story I ever wrote on digital audio, which is for Wired magazine back in, it's another year, I'm trying to forget. I think it was 1997 or so. And it was in the heyday of Napster, and Real Networks was coming out with an audio ripper device that they were trying to make friendlier to the music industry than what Napster was. And I was going around reporting the story, and I heard a phrase that I'd never heard before that immediately resonated with me. And the phrase was, jukebox in the sky. And the idea was that we now had, because of this still new thing called the internet and all these technology developments, we now had access to something that those of us with giant record collections, giant plastic vinyl LP collections could only fantasize about back in the 60s and 70s, which is access to every song ever recorded anywhere in real time, any moment that you wanted. This was just like a complete fantasy. And I wrote the whole story about this fantasy that was that we had and what was beginning to develop. And here we are, 20 years later, exactly 20 years later, and the fantasy is reality. We have access to everything we could possibly want. We've created business models around it. We've allowed artists, new artists, to come into existence and flourish in ways they never could before. We're entertaining audiences that never had the access to this great content. We've given rise to a whole new generation of storytellers. Here I should pause and say the other thing that I do every week without fail is I listen to the Slate Political Gab Fest when I'm trying to reduce the pain of doing the treadmill on Friday mornings. And this week also, another parentheses, very special week because my other favorite podcast, You Must Remember This, which is the secret and or forgotten history of Hollywood's first century, just came back for its newest season. So I mean, we have access to things that we've never had access to before. Storytellers are telling stories they were never able to tell before. Musical artists, other kinds of performers are being able to distribute things that they never could before to audiences that weren't able to listen to these things before. And that's all because of these companies and other companies like them that are creating this unbelievably creative, full of creative ferment new world. So I'm glad that those of you from the agency and marketing world are here today because you're the ones and your clients are the ones who get to benefit from all this creative ferment, and you're also creating and helping to generate more ferment and more creativity. It is a very virtuous cycle. They didn't write that for me. I just extemporized that. The things that I want to point out to you just as a preface, half of Americans listen to digital audio listened to digital audio in the past week. Half of the entire country. Digital audio is also highly mobile. In fact, it's almost indistinguishable from the mobility revolution. 4 out of 5 listening minutes, 80% of all listening minutes, take place on one or another mobile device. Audio obviously goes places where other forms of media can't go. You can listen, you can absorb, you can even pay attention while you're doing things like driving or working or cleaning the house. That's always been an advantage to radio, and it remains one of the distinct advantages of digital audio. Just don't text your preferences while driving, please. Connected cars can give listeners access to obviously digital audio in their cars and provide touch points that can be close to point of purchase. In fact, probably the next revolution, the real revolution, is the marriage of geolocation to digital audio. Music's a passion point, obviously one of the reasons that we're here today. It's also an excellent messaging opportunity for brands. We're going to hear a little bit more about that in a couple minutes. Podcasting's storytelling nature is also very, very effective. A great way of connecting with your audiences. And just to kind of conclude it, today's consumer expects connectivity. Expects, this ties to what I opened with. 20 years ago, when I was writing for Wired, this idea of jukebox in the sky was a complete and utter fantasy, almost science fiction. Now it's an expectation. To be able to get what you want, where you want it, exactly the right time, with the right messages and the right opportunities. And yesterday's fantasy is today's reality. So welcome to the IAB Digital Audio Day. I know you're going to learn a lot. I know you're going to have lots of questions. So feel free to participate and to shout. And let me get on with the show. Anna Bagger is the head of our SVP for mobile and video, and the general manager of both our Video Center of Excellence and Mobile Center of Excellence, and she is our digital audio queen. Anna, the stage is yours.
Thank you. That was very kind words. I don't know if I'm a digital audio queen, but it's definitely one of the favorite parts of my job is working with this group. I've led mobile for a long time for the IAB, and audio I think is a true mobile medium. And it's content that resonates with all of us. So being part of the work that's being done with this great committee, and many of you are here in the room today, that's so incredibly engaged and passionate about the topic is definitely one of the highlights of my job. Leading the industry forward is not always easy, but with this group, with all the passion, it's definitely a lot easier than with some of the other groups, not to name any names, but that I'm leading. Let's see if I can, how do I change slides? Maybe I do that here. Backwards? No. Oh, sorry. Oh, I did. I'm looking at the wrong slide. I'm so sorry. But yeah, audio is not just about the IAB for me and the work that I do. It's deeply personal too. I think Randall just talked about him listening to podcasts every day, and I do that too a little bit. I'm not going to name any names of them because most of them are actually Swedish. It's the way I keep the connection with the country I'm from. But what I do more than listening to podcasts is I listen to stream music, my music. I'm a commuter. I travel in from New York, Jersey every day, and to listen to have that access to the music of choice for me at any time that I want it on my commute is a really great way to start the day, especially on days like this in the winter when we're expecting a snowstorm and it's kind of hard to keep the energy level up. So audio keeps you company and it creates a soundtrack to our lives. I think that that's absolutely true, definitely in my case. But not just for me, for most Americans. As Randall said, this is odd. Oh, there we go. 80% of all Americans are listening to digital audio in some shape or way or form this year. It's up from 75% last year, but it's massive. It's a big number. This is a channel where everyone is really tuning in. And it's not just about discovery. Whether consumers are listening to audio occasionally or all day long, the overall share of the audience is really, truly growing. And according to eMarketer, we could see that in 2016, 177 million users listened to internet radio and podcasts. And in 2019, that number is projected to be over 190 million. So that's a really major share of the population. And it's interesting because there's been a massive shift in how we get our music. Americans actually consume more music through on-demand streaming than digital album, vinyl, and track sales from services like iTunes, and a lot more than CD and album sales. So very impressive numbers. It's also really effective in reaching consumers on the go. With 2/3 of digital media minutes now spent on mobile, advertising's reach on mobile devices is a key consideration to marketers and really should be. Listening to digital radio in apps is one of the top activities among smartphone users. I think, in fact, it's the second category, so it's what we use our phone for almost the most. And with that in mind, it's important to understand that listening to streaming music and podcasts have become a highly mobile activity. As recently as in Q2 in 2016, 82% of the people that listen to streaming audio stations measured by webcast metrics took place on mobile stations. And what are they listening to? Well, again, they're mostly listening to streaming audio and podcasts. That's where they're spending their time in mobile apps. And again, it's mobile, but one big benefit of audio is that the screen it's non-screen dependent, like almost, there's no other media in the world that is like that. Digital audio ads and impressions are delivered whether the screen is on or off. You can always hear them, it's always there, and it's always in reach. So as consumption shifts to mobile and screens get smaller or disappear entirely, devices that do not rely on screens become increasingly valuable. More and more uses take place while the consumer is driving, working, exercising, commuting, or maybe playing a video game. Apparently, we're doing it less and less while we're exercising, which I find interesting, but maybe this is podcast we're listening to. The bottom line is everyone is listening to digital audio, everyone in any segment. However, in particular, strong usage is coveted to the 18 to 34-year-olds, which is the demographic when consumers are starting to make choices and really build long, sustainable relationships that might last for life with brands. And 50% of podcast consumers are 12 to 34, and 70% are between 18 and 54. And digital audio ads are measurable. In fact, streamed audio ads can be targeted against many attributes, and delivery can be tracked and confirmed, which is pretty awesome for digital as well. Digital audio has the ability to deliver effective results for brands, and you'll hear more about this throughout the day. We'll have some really interesting panels to talk about how effective these ads are and conversations with advertisers about their experiences with these digital audio campaigns. And coming back to podcasting, in a recent Comscore study of podcast listeners, more than 2/3 said that they took action as a result of a podcast ad. That's truly impressive. So, digital audio is incredibly relevant. It has resonance with the audience. It's a very powerful medium, and it's definitely something that marketers and buyers should pay attention to. And that's why we are here today. The event today is sponsored by the IAB, or it's put on by the IAB Audio Committee, and it's sponsored by these companies that were just mentioned: Authentic, Spotify, Pandora, iHeart, Triton Digital, and New York Public Radio. All valued members of the Digital Audio Committee and members that put in a lot of work to help this medium grow. So we're very excited to be here today to put on this event together with them, and you'll have amazing content throughout the day. And if you haven't already, I also encourage you to pick up a copy of the Digital Audio Buyer's Guide from September last year, something that we created with this group. It has all the stats that I repeated to you and many, many more interesting facts in it, and it's something you should look at and stay tuned for more copies coming out in the future. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our MC for the day, Jennifer, who is going to introduce the rest of the day speakers. But thank you so much, Or, for coming. It's incredibly exciting to see you all in the room, and I look forward to a very exciting afternoon.